Hey everybody, it's Blue again. This time I'm bringing you another deck profile. It says Lumis and Umbra's decks. So the two masked duelists who face off in a tag duel against Yugi and Kaiba use a variety of cards around a mask theme. Now, unlike the anime where both characters had separate decks which supported each other, we built the same identical deck for both characters due to the limitations of the variety of cards that were played. And from that limited variety of cards that were played, even more limited of what was printed. But I do promise you that both of our decks are completely identical. There's your deck profile. No. So I'm going to go through with I'll do the Umbra deck. It's really irrelevant, but I preferred Umbra over Lumis. Lumis was kind of annoying to me. But they are two completely identical decks, card for card. So, first up, Grand Tiki Elder. These guys rolled with a few vanillas. Melkith the Four-Faced Beast, who does end up making more appearances in Merrick's deck, as well as Ganzi's deck in the virtual world. So, he actually got a few more notable mentions than some of the cards we saw that never came back. Rogue Doll, and Shining Abyss for the last of the normals. Again, you can see their monster lineup is not incredibly strong. They're kind of hovering around that 1600 attack points, so nothing too much from their normal monsters as far as, you know, the deck. It really comes from Mass Beast Desgardius. So, a monster that has an immense amount of attack power, later summoned by Merrick. Kaiba does use it to get the first turn in the four-way duel in the semifinals. Because of its immense attack power, he reveals it. But he never plays it, so it gives me reason to believe Kaiba had it for no reason other than to insist he goes first, because it's Kaiba, let's face it. So, Mass Beast Desgardius, no, unlike Merrick's deck, which contains one copy of Melkid, their decks each contain 3 copies of both Melkid and Grand Tiki Elder, making this monster much easier to summon in their decks, which it ought to be, considering that it was, you know, the thing that really held them up. That, in addition to the Masked Beast. So, 2 copies each of their boss monsters is a nice fit, given how the deck does not have a lot of strong monsters, although the deck is designed to support itself with spell cards, because in the anime, each of their decks support the other one, so this is combining that. So this has the monsters and the support spells. And still, if played in the tag duel, this deck then doubles everything. So the first spell card up is Chosen One. We only went with 1 copy because the card, it's not a great card, there's not much payoff, so we wanted to limit it, especially in a deck that is not strongly well-rounded, despite having several good other plays. 3 Curse of the Masked Beast, so yeah, there we go again. 3 of the ritual spell, 2 of the ritual monster. This is for consistency, but not allowing a player to make one of the players to individually make 3 of the ritual summon. 2 monsters, 3 spells. It's kind of what we've been liking to do for, again, consistency, to see this card to summon it, but without dropping an excessive amount of rituals. Mask of Brutality. So, great card. So, great attack booster. Now, unfortunately, unlike the anime, where they had several cards that would help them work around the cost of their cards, there is no cost prevention in this deck. So unfortunately, without a card like that, this card does have a life point cost. Because again, it did in the anime, they just had a way around it. This is not something that Delta and I figured we would try to resolve within errata. Mask of Dispel. So it's my favorite of all the mask cards, mostly because I like the artwork. I'm not quite sure why, it just, I don't know, looks a little bit cooler to me. So, their deck has ways to deal with monsters, has ways to deal with spell cards. This is one where it negates a card and inflicts damage, so their deck did feature a little bit of burn damage as well. Mask of the Accursed is how they deal with monsters and inflicts more burn damage. And with this deck running 3 copies of each, and with this deck in a tag duel with the other one, these decks can rack up a lot of damage really quickly just through grip spells. 2 Pot of Greed. Next up, the Mask of Remnants. Now, starting off the trap lineup is 2 Mask of Restrict. So, this was a card that really set the pace for the duel in that it completely locks down most character decks. Mask of Weakness making an appearance. So, it is one of the deck's only defensive cards in that it just weakens an attacking monster. So, not so much of a new or impressionable effect, but one that can be very useful. And the last card is 2 copies of Mirror Force. Alright, Mirror Force. I quickly want to touch on, so where Delta and I stand, 2 duelists confront Yugi and Kaiba in an alleyway. They're unknown rare hunters. Kaiba summons up multiple Blue Eyes with Lord of Dragons, tributes Lord of Dragons and 2 Flute of Summoning Dragon, tributes everything for Obelisk, and quickly crushes these 2 duelists who activate Mirror Force. While I've seen some debate as to who the duelists were, they really, I argue, resemble, and so we figure they were Lumis and Umbra before Lumis and Umbra got this killer tag deck strategy, right? I guess, not quite sure why that was all set up the way it was. But anyway, so the Mirror Force comes from that. Under the assumption that those 2 duelists were Lumis and Umbra before they got, better cards for whatever reason. They did play, in vain, 1 copy of Mirror Force, so the decks contain 2 copies of Mirror Force. So again, the decks are listed on our deck list document as Lumis and Umbra because, like Para and Dox, they are identical decks. We were not able to really build 2 unique decks, although if more cards are printed from their decks, we would definitely make an attempt to do so. But for now, they are 2 characters with identical decks comprising cards from both of their respective decks from the anime. I do want to add that originally these decks were both in purple sleeves, as both characters wore purple gowns. However, when we built the deck for Para and Dox, their decks were separated by the colors which they wore. So, in turn, we have taken the 2 decks and colored them in the sleeves of the mask that each character wore. It's really obviously not relevant. However, some of you guys have noted in the sleeve colors that we used, we try to match it to the characters to help make the decks more identifiable, even though, of course, there are repeat colors. But as a subtle nod, the 2 decks are now marked in distinguishing ways. So, like, comment, subscribe, and stay tuned for more duels from Battle City.